Hello everybody, welcome back to my studio. I'm Mary Rose Feldman and I'm happy to tangle with you again. We have a fun tile plan today. Gentle tangling, nice repetition, nothing stressful, all is good. And we're just gonna settle into our pen strokes and have a little bit of mindfulness and a little bit of creativity. A little bit of relaxation, all of it. So I hope you're having a great day. I'm very grateful that you're spending a little bit of time with me, and let's get rolling with a moment of gratitude. So just sit nice and tall. However you like to sit when you take a good deep breath. I like my seat sitting all the way back on my seat. I tend to sit on the edge of a seat. So I sit all the way back. I like my feet grounded on the floor if they can reach. And then just settle into your breath. This is the moment where we're just connecting our senses. We're noticing that full breath in. Full exhale. And we're just acknowledging how we feel right now. It is just a moment. Let go of what is causing you tension and stress. Our affirmation today: I have the strength to endure all failures and successes. Have a moment of gratitude. Pause the video for as long as you'd like and come on back when you're ready. Here's our tile today, our affirmation tile. All right, let's get started on our project. I am working today on our 5 tile. This is a Zentangle 5 tile. It is 5 by 5. Oops, let me zoom out a little bit. It's a 5 by 5. You can work on anything you want. Square, round, whatever. Please adapt these tiles to whatever you have in front of you and whatever you like to tangle with. No judgment. But I'm going to work on a 5 by 5. I like the little bit of extra room for this one. So if you're working in a journal, trace something that's a little larger than maybe the normal square. Okay, so the first tangle we are going to do is something called seaweed. And it is by Sedell, Wiltshire. And this comes from the bottom. And I guess I'll show you our tile. Again, it's hard to keep the tiles a secret because the image is on the video. So normally I think I'd like to just tangle this, but you've probably already seen it. So seaweed is this cool little tangle down here, and the way it comes about is really interesting, and there's a beautiful rhythm to it. There's a lot of forgiveness in it, and it really makes just a very interesting bottom. I will tell you that once you get done tangling it, it looks like a mess before you get the shading on and the depth. So don't panic if you get halfway through and you go, oh my gosh, this looks really kind of weird. It'll get there. I promise you it'll get there. All right, so what we're gonna do at the bottom of our tile, I'm gonna adjust my camera just a little bit here. We're gonna come in at the bottom of the tile, and we are going to make, I'll probably just have you watch the pen stroke. We're going to make a little wiggly pen stroke, and then at the top we're going to make this pod shape. And when I make that pod shape, I add rounding at the bottom just to attach it to its base. And I personally like to add a little aura with the highlight, just to give it a little bit of weight in there. Her original step out, or his original step out, I don't know, does not have that. Okay, they color it in with a highlight, but I liked it open for our piece. And then you're going to randomly, leave a space, wiggly line, and maybe this one goes up really tall. Make that shape, solder it to the base. And if you choose, you can add the aura. That is a bit of an option. And you can see on this one, it got a little off center. What I found making these is that if I go too fast, or I don't pay enough of attention, the pod looks angled on the stem. We really want this to look like the stem is holding up the little seaweed pod there. And you're just going to keep going. You're leaving space in between these because we are going to put more auras and more of the seaweed in there. I try to vary up my stem, vary up where these seaweed pods hit, so low, medium, high, in between. I'm going to make one really low. Get one going up a little higher again. And some of these pods are going to be bigger. Some are smaller. Vary up the scale as well as the height. Okay, so that's what I have so far. I think I'm going to add a little one over here too. Okay, so that's what I have so far. You've got varying height, varying pod sizes, although mine look all relatively the same. Didn't mean to do that, but okay, here's what we're going to do now. We are going to come up with an aura, and this is very organic in this pen stroke. I'm going to aura that stem. I'm going to come up around the pod, and then I'm going to aura back down. And then maybe next to it, I'm going to do another seaweed pod or seaweed stem that comes like that. Maybe I can get another one in here really short. So see how that filled in the gap? And it's very, very organic. So this one, maybe I'll go to the side. I'm not going to go up as high. And then this seaweed pod goes behind. Not pod, seaweed stem, seaweed. This one I'm going to take and I'm going to go a little bit higher. So it's going up to a point and then auraing back down, but I don't make it a perfect aura. I vary the width a little bit. Maybe I'll come over here and I'm going to aura that stem all the way up. And then when you have gaps, you're just going to organically fill it. I have a little gap here, so maybe I'll put a little guy, okay? So you're filling in this space, and it looks messy right now because we have no shading and no line weight in there. These seaweed pods are going to disappear into the seaweed stems and the auras, and that's pretty much what you're looking for. So vary the widths, vary how the points go. Some go left, some go right. And just go ahead and fill in your space. How full is up to you. And as you get the hang of it, if as you go you feel like you want to add another stem with a pod because you have an awkward space, go ahead and do that. One thing I have to caution myself on is I tend to start the wiggly line always in the same direction. And I have to be conscious. See, I have 4 lines going in the same direction right in a row. It's the natural way of what my hand wants to do. So I try to avoid that if possible. You may have to draw behind. There we go. So I find it a really interesting tangle because it's enjoyable to do in the process. It's rhythmic. You get this cool dimension when you're done. It's forgiving. You can really let your hand loosen up and go. So new tangle to me, and I've really enjoyed playing with it. Okay, so we're going to switch to our other tangle. And this is your reminder, pause the video if you need to pause the video. We're going to do another tangle, but I want to break this one down for you. This one is called Muka Like. And I've done this on a few tiles in the past couple years. And this is by Hildy. Okay, so This starts with a very large teardrop or very large flux shape, whatever you want to think about. And we're going to do muka. So I take off on this edge. I'm redrawing that edge and I take off at the point. You do a very large orb, but you don't connect it, and then you aura down. That's muka. Okay? Muka has a stem, an orb, and then an aura. That's all muka is. I know it's a tough one for me included. It took me months to just kind of break it down and practice it. Okay. Now, if I continue around with this pen stroke, my muka doesn't, it's hard for me to do this tangle in one pen stroke with the mukas. So I do one muka here and then I stop about halfway. Now I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to redraw this line as the stem of my muka. I'm going to do an orb in the other direction and then an aura. So now I've got these mirrored kissing mukas. And now all I have to do is connect aura, that original teardrop, and connect them. And that's how you get the muka-like shape. So what you do is in that teardrop, you're going to put just a skippy line down the center. And then, and you can do this a couple different ways. You're just going to aura to the right and aura to the left. So you don't need that center line if you don't want to do it. And then these are colored in. Everyone is colored in with that highlight in the center. I'm not coloring it in full because I don't want to take up your time. Okay, so you get that cool stripy shape in there. You add an orb in between the mukas. And then at the bottom, you put this C curve. So I tend to do 3, and you put that base on it. And you can put an orb at the top too. So I don't remember which steps. I know the base shape is muka-like. I don't remember if she puts the orbs in. I always do, so now I don't remember if it was in the step out or not. But it's a really cool, fun tangle. We're going to do it 2 different ways. On our tile, we're going to have some that are this direction and look like they're hanging down. And we're going to have some that are this direction and they're being held up by a garden sculpture. Think of it like a seaweed garden sculpture. So the 2 on the ends I put coming from the garden, from the seaweed, and the 3 in the middle I do from hanging from the ceiling. So remember, the angle, the direction of your original teardrop decides whether it's hanging or sitting or on a stem. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to make my large teardrop right here. So the bottom of that teardrop is where the stem comes out. So this one's going to be held up by a pedestal, is what I'm calling it. Go to the right with a muka. Go to the left with a muka. And then connect all the way around. I'm going to do the C curves at the bottom. And then from that C curve, so when you do this hanging or standing, you want the line to look like it's holding it up. You don't want it to be really off kilter. So I'm trying to position my tile so that that's vertically, and I'm going to try to draw a line from it that just gets disappeared into the seaweed and looks like it's holding it up. And rounding will help at the end. Okay, so that stem is just, I'm thinking of that like a wrought iron solid stem. I know it's a story, but it's okay, right? And that's just disappearing into the seaweed. I'm going to do another one over here, and I'm going to try to make it not even. Let's see, maybe I'll make it a little bit smaller. Maybe I'll put 2 C curves on the bottom of that. Okay, so there's my 2 muka likes that are growing up or being held up from the seaweed. For my other ones that are going to hang, if you want to draw muka like exactly the same way, you need to turn this upside down. So leave room for the muka. Here's your teardrop. So the bottom of that teardrop, opposite the point, the rounded edge, is where the stem comes from. So you have 1 hanging and 2 stems. So I'm going to put 2 more hanging in different scales. there's what you have. So cute. Okay, so there's one thing I did to my mukas before we go ahead and shade. Whenever I do muka, I tend to like to continue that point into a little curve with a dot, just to fill in. There's a lot of ways you can do the center of that muka. They're a little bit too bare for me. Okay, so I'm going to grab my pencil, pause the video if you're still tangling, but I'm going to start down with seaweed. And here's where the magic comes with seaweed, and there's a little bit of intuition on this. In the bottom of all of the seaweed pods, the pods that we drew first, I'm going to put a little graphite at the bottom. You can see I'm just scribbling in a dot of graphite. I'm not really placing it very well except at the bottom. And then I'm going to blend that up, blend that into the bottom and fade towards the top. So you have a dark edge at the bottom and light at the top. So that's going to help stand out the pods. I also want to stand out the stems of the pods. And the way I did this is I just scribbled graphite over their stems or to the right of their stems. If I could see the right of their stems, that's what I did. But I want to emphasize their stems and bring those seaweed pod stems that we originally drew. I want to give them a little bit of prominence. And again, this shading is a very intuitive shading. We're just looking to get some darks and some lights. I'm choosing to put the darks in with the stems, and then I'll decide where else I want to shade. So you can see by putting that shading in, it starts to separate and give us some more contrast in the seaweed. So you can start to see the layers a little bit. And then from here, it's really a bit of intuition about where you want to shade. So when I lean back, what is popping out at me? For example, right here, there's no shading. So I'm going to get some shading in between. So here's a seaweed with a point and a seaweed with a point. I'm going to put some shading behind there and then watch how the seaweed stems pop out. So see how now you can see that seaweed stem because I put graphite behind it. So that's one approach, is that you could make things pop by putting shading behind it. The other way you could make things pop is to shade the inside of the seaweed. I don't know what to call these, the ones with the points on them. So you can shade the inside and have it pop. So this will pop dark because there's white behind it. These pop white because you put dark behind it. So that's the intuitiveness of how I shaded. And I just have graphite on my tortillon. So I'm filling in some of the background, and then I look at it and I see where do I want to add more. But if you want to make something look white, you put dark next to it, and vice versa. You can also come in with your pen, like an 05, and you can add power to these stems, or some of them, by just thickening their lines. And which ones do you do? You know, the ones that speak to you. Maybe the one that you like the best. But if you come in here and you just make some of them thicker lines, the one that I darkened over here, if I darken that edge also, that gives you contrast. So now he pops out a little bit. You can do the same with the stems that come down from our pods. If you just thicken those lines in addition to the shading that we did on them, so now your stems pop even a little bit more. And you can see the dimension. So you just remember that when you do this, you still want to maintain bright. So you can focus on the dark, but still maintain areas. So you can go back and forth on that as long or as much as you want. I think for now I'm good with where that is. For the Muka, for Muka-like, I come into those teardrop shapes and I add shading at the bottom and shading at the top. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm shading all of the white strips. But some of them are tiny to stay in the white strips. And then leave that highlight on the white strips too, just like you did on the black. I did a little bit of shading in the orb, just with the graphite that's on my tortillon. If you choose to, you can add some to the orb of the Muka. I know I went over those a little bit fast. Some of the shading on this is very optional. And varied. Okay, so with my pencil, I'm just going to come to the edge and give just a little bit of graphite all the way around the top edge. I don't even know if you'll be able to see it. just to frame the top a little bit. All right, really soft edge just to tone down some of the brightness of the white edge. I'm going to take my pen and add my chop. And there's our seaweed tile. Seaweed and muka-like. So fun. Okay, take a nice good deep breath. I hope you can hold your tile out and appreciate it and have a moment of gratitude. And I hope you found this nice and relaxing and gentle tangling. I can't wait to tangle with you again. I hope you have a great day. Bye.